How many of you are mentally, emotionally, physically, and even spiritually done with finals week? My people. How many of you wasted time that you could have spent studying watching Netflix? My people. I am definitely guilty of wasting study time. Especially though, when I was a freshman in high school. When I was a freshman, I was taking a geometry class. And now something about me is I hate math. And geometry was no exception for me. So when I would walk into the classroom and see equations like this on the board, I knew what to do. Run. And so that's what I would do. My older sister had an open period the same time that I had geometry, and we would leave together and go home and do anything but homework. And my older brother was my emergency contact, and so he wrote all of my absence notes for me. So my parents never found out I was ditching school. It was perfect, but my grades were not perfect. It came time for me to take the final, and because I never went to class, I had no idea what was going on. But it turns out I'm a really good guesser. And I passed the test and I passed the class. But that class to me was still a huge waste of time. How many of you have said that before? Like, this is a huge waste of time. How many of you have said, I am never going to need this? How many of you have said something like that in regard to general education classes? This geometry class to me was like a general education class. And I thought that it was a waste of time. But I didn't see the potential it had to teach me more than just triangles. My junior year of high school, I was taking a pre-calculus class. Now, if I thought I hated geometry, I loathed pre-calculus. But I was in a class with a lot of my friends, and they made it bearable. But because they had actually paid attention and went to class in geometry, they understood what was going on. And they excelled in the class and got A's and B's on tests and assignments. Me? I was getting D's and F's consistently, so bad that at the semester I had to transition to a lower level math class just to save my GPA. So even though I didn't go to class and I didn't learn, I did learn something. I learned that what you're learning is only a waste of time if you waste your opportunity to learn. I hated math, but I didn't see the potential that geometry had to teach me pre-calculus, or the potential it had to teach me problem-solving skills, or critical thinking. We look at general education classes as a waste of time, but really they're there to teach us and to help us. They teach us things about ourselves, but also they teach us skills. For example, I learned about myself that I never wanted to study something that required math, which is why I'm a communication major. And speaking of majors, how many of you here have changed your major, emphasis, or module? About 1/3 of all students studying to get a bachelor's science degree end up changing their major, which tells me that we learned something about ourselves. We learned something from our experiences or from a class that told us that we were made for something different. And so we went with it. General education classes don't just help us for our school, but also for jobs. By constantly seeking out opportunities to learn and to grow and to better develop ourselves, we learn new things and we prepare for the 12 to 15 jobs that on average we will have in our lives. I remember one of my first jobs. It was my senior year of high school when I decided that I wanted to become a lifeguard. And I'm from a really small town in Nevada, and so that was really the only option for me. It was that or just move right after high school. And so I worked really hard, and it took weeks of trainings and practicing and preparing, but eventually I did get hired. And I remember sitting on that stand in the 115-degree Nevada heat, sweating my butt off, watching everybody else get to swim and dive off the diving board. But I still had a lot of fun, mostly because I got to blow the whistle and tell kids to stop running. That was me. But at the end of the summer, I couldn't help but ask myself, was that a waste of time? I had spent all of those weeks, even the week of my spring break, learning things that I never got to apply. Things like CPR and rescues that I never really got to experience. Nobody hit their head, nobody had a spinal injury, nobody drowned, nobody even slipped on the deck. And not that I wanted those things to happen, I really didn't. But I couldn't help but feel like I prepared for something that I didn't need to, and so I wasted my time. Well, fast forward a year later to July 1st, 2017, when I went bridge jumping with some friends over Fall River, Idaho. I remember standing on top of this bridge, the adrenaline rushing through my legs, and looking down at the water 15 feet below me. I was with 6 other friends on top of this bridge, and we all jumped simultaneously. And we splashed into the cold river water. It's July in Idaho, but that does not mean that the water is warm. But as we emerged, I noticed that 3 of my friends were caught in the middle current. And one of these friends couldn't swim very well. The rest of us got out, and we followed them until they went around a bend. And we lost them. We followed the river for a ways until we got to a line of private property. And that's when we saw one of our friends running toward a house, calling out to a man on a balcony, saying, "Please call 911, somebody has drowned." We ran to where my friend had come from. But we couldn't even see the river. It was crowded by trees and rocks and bushes. But we heard our other friend call to us, "Don't come down here." But I didn't listen. And I went down to the riverbank. There was just enough room for my friend's upper body to lay, as the rest of his body was still immersed in the river water. My friend was bloated, his eyes were wide open, he was unconscious, and he wasn't breathing. This friend that I had just jumped off a bridge with minutes before was lying in front of me dead. But I knew what I had to do. Even though I was terrified, I knelt down in the water and I started compressions. I gave my friend CPR for 8 minutes until he started breathing again. The breaths were shallow and a minute apart, but he was breathing. What you are learning is only a waste of time if you waste that opportunity to learn. I had no idea that what I had learned a summer before would become so real and so applicable. Many people look at learning opportunities as a waste of time because they believe that they could be doing something better. But instead, I propose that we look at learning opportunities as opportunities to learn. After my friend started breathing, the police came, and he was life-flighted to Idaho Falls, where he was put into a medically induced coma for a week and a half. A year and a half later, he is happy, healthy, and studying school at BYU Provo with his 2 brothers. If I had wasted my opportunity to learn CPR, I wouldn't have been able to help my friend. So you might think that general education classes and your classes in general might be a waste of time, and you might be so done with finals. But remember this: life lessons only come from learning. So don't waste that opportunity. Thank you.